Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we'll be talking about Episode 6 of Season 11 of The X-Files, titled Kitten. Now, it'd be really hard to top last week's episode, which I thought was flat out great. And no, this one doesn't come close to that, but I really liked it. I thought this was a really good episode. There's a lot of stuff in here I like, a lot of cool ideas that I thought they did pretty well in there. And I don't know, I thought it was really entertaining. This episode begins with a really cool pre-title sequence that takes place in Vietnam, and actually is about Skinner, and he was a kid and a soldier in Vietnam with his friend, played by Haley Joel Osment, surprisingly. And they're delivering this secret weapon there, and they're on the ground, and they end up getting shot at, and the weapon gets shot and unleashes this gas that engulfs Haley Joel Osment, and it starts affecting his brain, and he starts to see monsters and starts kind of going crazy. Actually, just slowly deteriorates his brain. Cut to now, modern day, and Skinner has gone missing. And actually, it's really cool. You got a scene with Mulder and Scully, and they're talking with Kirsch, which was just really cool seeing him again. I mean, I've never been the hugest fan of his character. I thought he was just fine, like in the original run. But the fact that they brought him back, I thought that was really cool. And it is a really interesting scene where he starts bringing up stuff like, yeah, why do you think, in the 25 years since you've met Skinner, why he's never gone up in ranks, he's still like assistant director and stuff like that. And he actually blames Mulder and Scully for that. For Skinner's loyalty to Mulder and Scully being the reason why he never went up higher and became anything more than just assistant director. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And just some good dialogue where he's just chewing out Mulder and Scully and just talking about all their dumb conspiracy stuff. And I don't know, I like that scene. And then you have Mulder and Scully. Now they're investigating what happened to Skinner, where'd he go, what happened. And first thing they do is they go and visit his apartment, which was really interesting to see. It's just this blank, empty apartment with no pictures or anything. And they end up finding a letter that he got, and opens up and finds this severed ear, and that leads them to this one town, this rural town. And they go there investigating, finding out that there are a bunch of Vietnam vets that are there, and a lot of them were actually locked up in this mental hospital. And then they find out that Skinner is there. He's going to see his friend Haley Joel Osment, and the severed ear that's sent to him is actually connected to that character, because you see the character back in Vietnam after he gets infected by the gas. He starts cutting off the ears of his victims. And all this leads Mulder and Scully just to this small rural town where they find out that people have been seeing this monster in the woods, and some people are showing up dead, and they find out that it's all connected to Skinner's friend Haley Joel Osment. Actually, it's not. It's connected to his son, who is played by Haley Joel Osment. So what I liked most about this episode was the focus on Skinner. It's so great to see a Skinner's themed episode. I love that character, and there's so much interesting stuff with him that we've never really explored. We've only had one Skinner-centered episode in the whole original run of the show, so it's great to see someone focus on him, focus on his backstory. I liked a couple of scenes that were flashback to Vietnam. I thought that was really cool, and exploring his backstory and his guilt over this one character, his friend, who basically just went insane. And when Skinner testified about it, he basically just couldn't say anything because that secret gas was classified. It was a secret, so he couldn't mention it, and basically that led to his friend's character spending his entire life in a mental hospital going crazy, and his wife left him, and all that stuff, and you just see that he's lived with that guilt all his life. And I thought that was really interesting. I just like having the focus be on Skinner. I thought that's really cool. I've always loved Skinner as a character, so I loved seeing all of that. I thought that was just great. I really liked Haley Joel Osment in the episode too. I thought he was really good. His best scene has to be at the end when Mulder and Scully go to talk to him when he's playing the son character, and they're in his little trailer park house. And the tension is just starting to rise because it starts off just a friendly conversation. He's just like, oh, hey guys, yeah, come on in, yeah. And he slowly just kind of starts going on this kind of tirade about government and using fear to do it to get what they want and all that kind of stuff. And the tension just keeps rising because he's just getting slowly more and more unhinged. And Mulder's looking at this photo album where he sees pictures of Skinner, even though Haley Joel Osment says oh, I've never even heard of that guy, I don't know who he is. And the tension just builds and builds, and I love that scene. I thought that was great. I even thought the design of the monster costume was cool, and it was really interesting that there really was no supernatural elements to the episode. Yeah, sure, you have that gas that's making people see things, but there really wasn't supernatural, and there was no real monsters in this episode. I thought that was really cool and really interesting way to take it. And I did like the kind of stuff it explored with the themes of fear and all that kind of stuff, which isn't the most unique or new or different things, but I thought it was well handled for the most part. And this was really Mitch Pileggi's time to shine, and I thought he did a wonderful job in everything he did. It had really good dramatic moments, and it was just really well acted. I thought he was great. But there are some flaws with the episode. I thought the episode was a little slow to start. And for being a Skinner-centric episode, he doesn't appear till a little while in, so that was a little disappointing. And I thought the earlier scenes with Mulder and Scully investigating stuff, I just thought was kind of clunkily written. It was really dialogue heavy, just wasn't really interesting dialogue. And I don't normally complain about Gillian Anderson's performances. I think she's fine throughout both seasons, season 10 and 11. But in this episode, she seemed really bored. I'm not sure if it was just the dialogue just didn't interest her or anything. But her line reading just seemed really bored. Every time she's just spouting out medical mumbo jumbo, the way she says it, I don't know, it just came off as kind of bored. But once Skinner shows up and the plot really kicks it into gear, that's when it picks up, and I was really into it all the way to the end. And also in the end, I thought the editing was kind of off a little bit, especially the part when Mulder gets knocked into the well, where just the way it was cut, it was very choppy, and also the way he gets out too, it was just very choppily cut. It's really weird how the Mulder and Scully elements were the weakest aspects of this episode. Not saying they were bad or anything, but they were the least interesting stuff. The stuff in the beginning, with them going to the town and talking to the sheriff and stuff. That stuff was fine, but I thought it was more interesting. And when it got to Skinner and his interactions with Haley Joel Osment, and I thought that was the most interesting and best stuff of the episode. I love the final scene between Mulder, Scully, and Skinner, where he explains how the events in Vietnam with his friend on the gas, that's what made him distrust the governments. When he first joined, he enlisted himself when he was all gung-ho, to do all this. And then after that, that's when he started to, lose his trust. And Mulder and Scully, when they came in, they helped him basically just, get the motivation to fight for what he believes in. And so, he says, you guys helped me out a lot, and I really like that scene. It's kind of like them getting back together after this whole season. It's kind of been them not trusting each other anymore, which I didn't like that. I didn't like how, every time you saw Skinner, it was all just kind of, shady, we don't trust you. And I like that they're back, when, Skinner gets up and leaves, and Mulder goes, Skinner, we're on your side, we're with you. I'm oh, that's great. They're back. The gang is all back together and they're happy with each other. Despite the fact that Skinner is still keeping secrets from them. He knows the truth behind William and everything, so still, I guess, not too trustworthy, but I like that they're kind of back on each other's side. And there's a great speech delivered by Skinner, delivered by Mitch Pileggi, who just nailed it. Although it did seem kind of weird. It did seem like part of it is what he was talking about felt like it's kind of a build-up for another episode. Where he's I've been fighting, I'm trying to figure out what they've been doing with this gas or whatever for all these years, and I'm going to keep fighting for his sake, for his memory, and that stuff. And it seemed like a build-up to a future episode, to something that I don't think is ever going to get paid off. If he's ever going to find out what's going to happen, or if he's ever going to continue that search. I doubt we're never going to see Skinner continue that search, so it seemed really weird to have that dialogue, where it felt like the episode was almost going to end with the to-be-continued line, with the way he was talking about. And then you get to the thing where he leaves the house and he feels in his mouth and his tooth falls out, which is a side effect of that gas. So that is kind of a loose end that, again, with his speech about trying to figure out what's going on, I don't know if it's ever going to pay off. I don't know if anything's going to come through with that. But I'm that was an interesting way to end it. That's something different. There's a lot of cool elements. I like when Skinner gets pushed into the well and he gets impaled, which, he took that wound pretty easily. But then, they dropped the hanging dead body of the character. They dropped him in there, too. There's a lot of good elements to it. Like I said, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't the most original storyline. Kind of stuff we've seen before of, using fear as a tactic and stuff like that. And like I said, some clunky stuff in the beginning that didn't totally work. But I love the focus on Skinner. I love Haley Joel Osment. I thought he was great in this episode. I loved seeing the flashbacks. And it just all came together for a really solid episode that I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's episode 5 of X-Files Season 11. Even though this episode wasn't as great as last week's, I still feel like it continues a strong streak that was started with that previous episode. And I like what both these ones have done by just adding more depth and layers to these characters and actually making this season feel relevant more, because it actually adds more to the world. And I like that, and I really hope the last 4 episodes do that. So we'll have to wait and see for another 3 weeks, surprisingly. It's going to be weird not having a new episode next week. Well, what you going to do? And yeah, that's about it for now. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.